Hey guys, before we get into this video, I want to make a warning, a disclaimer that everything that you're hearing is from my own personal experience. You're going to see my credit score and my credit cards, but this is my own personal experience. Credit affects different people in different ways. If you have a short credit history, applying for credit cards can hurt your score more than if you have a long credit history. Applying for credit cards can also possibly hurt your ability to get a loan, and that could, or a mortgage for a home, and that could last up to 2 years or longer. I'm not sure of all of that. I haven't had the opportunity to apply for a mortgage or a refinance or a car loan in the last couple of years since I started doing this, but there is some arguments on both sides of the fence on how applying for credit cards hurts or helps your credit score. It's actually helped my credit score a little bit. I think I can't be for sure on how it would help or hurt if I was applying for a mortgage. Again, there are arguments on both sides. I've heard of people getting denied on mortgages, and I've heard of loan officers who actually prefer that people have shown the ability to have a lot of lines of credit but not utilize all of that credit. They see that as a good factor as opposed to a negative factor. Again, I encourage you to do a lot of research on this, go well beyond the videos that I provide, because the videos I provide are for me. They're on my case and what has happened with me. So that may not be the same as what happens to you, but that's the warning that I'm giving before you go into watching this video. Thank you, and I hope it can provide you one bit of information that will help you in making your decision on whether or not this is the type of activity that you want to do. Thanks. Hey guys, today we're going to discuss what applying for credit cards does to your credit score. A lot of people ask the question, doesn't applying for credit cards hurt my credit score, or what's it do to my FICO score if I apply for a lot of credit cards? And the short answer is that you get a hard pull on your credit when you apply for a credit card, and that takes a few points off of your credit score. If you are approved for that card, you are given a line of credit, and that line of credit adds to your available credit and lowers the debt that you have, the debt to available debt that you have, and therefore that increases your credit score by a few points. So the net after about a month or two is about a net of nothing. I've applied for and received in the last couple of years about 25 different credit cards. Now my credit is probably a little bit higher than when I started doing that a couple of years ago. So, and each time I applied, I could see my credit score go down, and then about a month or two later, it would go back up, just for those reasons that I told you. Now, if that's all you wanted to know, that's fine. You can move on with this video. Otherwise, I'm going to get into the long part of how your credit score works, and that's what the remainder of this video is going to be, is the details about credit score and what goes into building your credit score. So, let's see. First, I want to make sure that I re-emphasize that if you're into travel, if you want to try and get into travel hacking, you really need to have your credit cards paid off. I think that that's the most important thing, is that you don't go into this sort of thing with a bunch of debt. Pay off your debt, Get your credit to where you're good, get your finances to where you are comfortable, because this is travel hacking involves ringing up normal expenses on a credit card, but you want to pay them off every month. And if you can't do that, don't get involved with this game. I think that that's important. So if you are in a place where you think you have good credit and you're just wondering about how it's going to affect your credit, then move on. If you aren't in a place where you're in control of your finances, then I would suggest do not do this. That's number one. Don't do this if your finances aren't in a good place. I pay off I've been debt free for 20 years. The only thing that I have is a house mortgage, and we did have some car mortgages that we had, car loans. Those are all paid off now. I just make sure to pay them, that whatever I purchase, I can pay them off. I pay off my credit cards every month, and if you can do that, especially if you're getting into this game, pay off everything that you charge every month. Only purchase things that you know you can pay off at the end of the month. That's one of the most important things when going forward in travel hacking, is that you don't get in over your head. And the way to do that is to pay off your credit cards every month. Now into the credit score. Several years ago, when calculating your score, it was kind of a secret. People kind of wondered what went into it. And I got into some bad habits because I didn't understand what was involved in credit score. I actually paid off a credit card and then canceled that credit card, which is a bad thing to do for your credit. And had I known then what I know now, I would still have that credit card open. If it was a credit card with an annual fee, then I would have gotten it reduced to a lower line credit card within the same bank, so that it had no annual fee, and then that way I'm not paying out anything. But it's important to have that credit history. Never cancel anything, bank accounts or credit cards, that establish the beginning of your credit history. The longer that is, the better. Right now we know all the factors that go into it, and you can actually adjust what your score does by following some simple rules. So to start off with, we need to get with the basics. There are 3 credit agencies called credit bureaus. It's the 3 main ones where creditors report in anything that have to do with your credit to them. It's kind of a reciprocal relationship where they can get credit scores and evaluate your credit worthiness. But in return, they also have to give, your payment history. They report to the credit agencies whether you're late on bills, whether you default on loans. This is all voluntary. Creditors do not have to report to TransUnion or Equifax or any of these credit bureaus, but it's voluntary. So sometimes if you have, if you're doing something good, you won't see it reflected in your credit, because maybe it's a smaller company that doesn't report your status to the credit bureaus. Most do. I mean, once you get into the mainstream credit cards, mortgages, almost all of them will report. But just know that it is voluntary, so there are some that will not. Again, there are 3 bureaus. There's TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, and they each can be reported to. So a creditor may report to TransUnion and Equifax, but they may not report to Experian. That means that TransUnion and Equifax will have a different report history than Experian will. Now, some of them report to all 3, some of them only report to 1. So you will have a credit score with each of those agencies that's slightly different. So if your creditor goes to TransUnion to get your credit score, they might get a slightly higher or slightly lower credit score than if they went to Experian, for instance. And that's because they just have different credit records on you. Now, the way that the credit score is actually calculated, and the most important credit score, is called a FICO score. And FICO is a proprietary term for Fair Isaac Corporation. Fair Isaac was a company that had an algorithm that took all of the stuff in your credit history and spit out a score. And that score, the higher it was, the more credit worthy you were. The lower it was, the more of a credit risk you were. And so creditors used that score to determine whether or not they were going to extend you a line of credit, be it a mortgage or a credit card or car loan. And this FICO, the FICO score became the de facto credit score in the industry. Most places use FICO score as opposed to a credit score like a Vantage score that you would see when you get into Credit Karma or Credit Sesame. They give you your free credit score, and those are actually fairly decent representations of what your FICO score would be. They take that information and they put it into their own algorithm, which is similar to FICO, and spit out a score. But they don't have to deal with Fair Isaac, so they can do it all on their own and get their own score. They call it Vantage score, and most places don't use Vantage score, they use FICO score, but it gives you a good representation of what your credit is. If you actually want actual FICO score, a lot of credit cards offer that as a free benefit to having their credit cards. You can get your actual credit score every month after it's updated. You'll with several cards, several American Express, several Chase cards have this as a benefit, also Citi cards. And that's how I know mine. I know that it's different depending upon which agency they're getting it from, but it's all around the same place. My credit score, depending upon who you're getting it from, is going to be right around 795 to about 850. And this is on a score from 300 to 850, or depending upon which FICO score they're going after, it could be 250 to 900. Depending upon what the credit is being pulled for, the range is a little bit different, and really that doesn't matter. The actual ranges, and these are averages, because whoever pulls your score, they can decide what they want to, what's good credit and what's excellent credit to them. They'll have their own ranges, but usually, almost all the time, you'll find that anything above 750 is an excellent score. A lot of times you won't have any problems getting credit extended to you if you have a good score. Anything above 700. So 700 to 749 is considered good credit. Above 749 is excellent credit. Fair credit is 650 to 699. Poor credit is 550 to 649, and bad credit is anything below 550. Typically, when you're playing in this game of travel hacking, you want to have good credit, something that is 700 or above. I know there are people that have less credit and apply for credit cards that don't have a problem below that, but it all depends on what credit cards you go after as well. Back in history, it was tough for consumers to figure out what actually played into their credit. Nowadays, it's freely available online. You find that the factors that go into building your credit score are about 35% payment history. How have your payments been? Are you on time? Have you missed any payments? Are you up to date? That's 35%. 30% is the debt to amount owed. How much debt do you have, and how much overall credit has been extended to you. 15% is your credit history. 10% is new credit inquiries, and 10% is the mixture of your accounts. So I'll hit on the important ones that are affected during travel hacking. Paying your bills is number one. You always want to make sure that you're paid off and up to date with all of your bills. Don't cancel your oldest accounts. Keeping your credit lines open, even if they're paid off, it's good to have that, because that is available credit that you have to you, and the more available credit that you have and the less debt that you have, the less overall amount that you owe, the better that is for your credit score. So make sure to keep your old accounts open, and to a certain extent, and when you're first starting out, the first several cards that you get, you'll want to keep open. There's no reason to cancel them. it's only going to hurt you. Keeping them open will help you. Having a good mixture of accounts, showing that it's not just credit cards, but you can also pay home loans or car loans. Never be afraid to open a line of credit if it's extended to you. But again, this is credit that you are willing and able to pay off in a timely fashion. So be smart with your credit, be smart with your finances, and don't get in over your head. A couple of things that hurt your credit score: if you don't pay your bills or you miss paying your bills, you'll notice that these are ticks that go on, they're hits that go on your credit report, and they factor in when determining your credit score. You don't want to see these coming up on your credit report. So always pay your bills on time. Always make sure that you pay your bills off. Don't default on loans. Make sure that you have low credit utilization. Just because I have $10,000, $15,000 in credit doesn't mean that I need to have all of that used. I'm only hurting myself with the interest rates that they charge. Personally, I made it priority to pay off my credit cards. I can't spend on this if I can't pay it off at the end of the month, and I've done that for the last decade. I've been really happy with that. That keeps my credit score high, and it also makes sure that I'm not tagged with any interest charges. So essentially, all of my travel hacking is free, or almost free. There are some annual fees that come in, but when you're talking about tickets that cost thousands and thousands of dollars to travel, I pay a small amount for an annual fee, and even that can be offset in many ways. So it's free if you're not paying interest on the balance that you put on these cards, and I don't pay them off every month. So keep a low credit utilization. One thing to keep in mind when you're travel hacking, a hard pull happens when any creditor is looking to extend a credit line to you. They do what's called a hard pull. Soft pulls are ones when you look up your own credit. They don't hurt your credit score at all, but hard pulls will ding you for a few points. A lot of credit inquiries tend to be an indicator of someone who may have a problem paying off their debt in the future. A lot of credit inquiries can do that, so a lot of them will bring your score down fairly quickly. But if you have one credit inquiry or a couple credit inquiries, it'll knock you down a few points. Anything under 30% utilization, that means if you have if all of your credit lines add up to $10,000, it's best for your credit score if you keep the utilization of that to 30% or less. So you want to keep under $3,000 on a total of $10,000 in credit line. Let's just say you have a credit card, and on that credit card you have a $5,000 limit, and you currently have $2,500 in what you owe on that card. So you owe $2,500. The credit limit is $5,000. You're at a 50% utilization if you have no other credit cards. That's not good for your credit score. One thing that you can do which will immediately improve your credit score would be to lower the amount that you owe. You can lower it from $2,500 down to $1,000, then you're only using 10%, and since you're not above the 30% threshold, that'll help improve it a few points. If you were to add another card, say you got another $5,000 limit card, and I'm using round numbers for simplicity. You have $0 that you're using on that card, and you have $2,500 on your other $5,000 card. It's a total of $10,000 in credit limit, and you're only utilizing $2,500 of that. Now that lowers your utilization rate down to 25%. It was at 50, now it's 25, simply by opening up another credit line of $5,000. That does look better on your credit and will reflect in your credit score than a 50% utilization. Even though you don't owe any more, you just have you have more credit available to you, and so that shows better on your credit score. Another thing, I mentioned it earlier, make sure that you always keep your oldest card open. want to make sure that your established credit history is as long as possible. So I've already hit on why opening credit cards doesn't hurt your, well, it does temporarily hurt your score, but then it averages itself out because it'll pop it back up when your utilization rate goes down and the credit available to you goes up. One thing to keep in mind, if you are doing travel hacking and you plan on going out to get a car loan or a mortgage or a bigger loan, one thing you might stay away from travel hacking. If you're going to open up credit cards, open up several credit cards. This is several hits to your credit, and even though it will balance itself back up in your score, you can have a high score and still be denied credit. And that is because you have gone after several cards. Now, if you plan in the next year or two, some people say 2 years, some people say it doesn't matter at all. I tend to be more on the conservative side and stay at 2 years. If you plan on having a large loan that you're going after or a refinance of mortgage that you plan on going after, then stay out of the travel hacking. If you definitely want to ensure that it does not affect your ability to get a loan. These are all the cards that I've gotten in the last couple of years. Some of these are my wife's. Is our credit score low? No, I've got between a 795 and an 850 score, depending upon who you're checking my credit from. I have been denied on a couple of cards. The reasoning was too many credit inquiries in the past. Whenever that comes up, I tend to slow down for a couple of months and stop applying for credit cards, but those will fall off after usually tend to fall off your short-term credit report after 6 months, so I go back into it and I have no problem getting another card. I haven't had to worry about paying for any of my travel. I've had over $100,000 in the last year in airfare that I've had for free. I'm gonna post some of the videos of some of my trips that I've done for free over the last couple of years. So it can be beneficial, and it hasn't cost me anything. I haven't paid any interest fees because I've gone about it smart. So I think that covers pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. A lot of this stuff can be found online, so feel free to check more, check my story, check to make sure what I'm telling you is true. Never go on any one person's word about anything. But check out my other videos in the series. If you like the content that you've heard in this one, go ahead and subscribe and give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Thanks.